Hi everybody, I wanted to do a video today to help you out if you're getting ready to do your e-file or your property tax protest. I'm going to go over 3 really helpful tips that should really improve your chances of success. So the first thing that I want to talk about is an issue that a lot of people are confused about. It's what is the difference between assessed value and market value. So I'm going to just define both of those terms and explain why that matters for your property tax protest, but I wanted to show you. So when you get your notice, this is what it looks like, and it's another term. It says appraised value there. I think they're really trying to confuse us. But anyway, you'll get that notice, and there will be 2 amounts on there, assessed value and market value. So what do those mean? Assessed value is the amount that you can be taxed on. So it's going to take any exemptions that you have. If you have over 65, or if it's your primary residence and you have a homestead exemption, then the amount of annual property taxes that you have to pay is going to be lowered. So your assessed value will generally be less than your market value. But again, assessed value is what they can tax you on. Market value, on the other hand, is what the appraisal district is saying your house is worth in the current market if you were to put it up for sale right now. And I'm going to show you a couple numbers because I think it helps if you actually see the numbers as an example. So here's an actual real property tax bill, and there's 2 numbers that you see there. Market value is around $247 and assessed value $224. So when you do your e-file or you do your informal hearing, the very, very important point I want to get across is that you will only reduce your property tax bill if you get them to lower your assessed value. You have to get below the assessed value in order to get any property tax savings. And there's a lot of confusion on this point. People will do an e-file or go to a hearing and they get a reduction, or what they think is a reduction, but really all they get is a reduction in their market value, which essentially is meaningless. So very, very important. Know that the only number you need to focus on is assessed value. You've got to get it lower than that. So second point I wanted to talk about, e-file, that's when you do your protest from home and you don't have to actually go in person and visit the appraisal district. And I think if you've watched my other videos, you know that my personal opinion is that I think you get the best results with a face-to-face hearing. So I recommend doing the informal hearing in person. But I can say that doing e-file is better than doing nothing. So if you do go ahead and do the e-file, the second point I wanted to go over is that the e-file is considered your informal hearing. And that's really important to know because, you know, if they reduce your value on the e-file and maybe you don't agree with it, you think you should get a higher, reduction, the only recourse you have after you do the e-file is to go to the formal hearing, which is going to be a bit harder. It's going to be under oath. It's going to be recorded. It's going to be 3 or 4 people that you've got to convince versus just the one-on-one situation for informal. So, a lot of people don't know that. They do the e-file and then they come to me after the e-file with questions and they think they can also go to an informal hearing after that, but they can't. So just know going in, if you do your e-file, you are losing your opportunity for a face-to-face informal hearing. Just want to make that clear to everybody. And one other thing on e-file, the deadline to get that done is usually about a week before the deadline to mail your notice in. So this year the notices are due May 31st for Travis County, and e-file deadline I believe is May 24th. So when you get your notice every year and you're planning to do e-file, just make sure you look at the deadlines because they're not the same. That's another thing that I've had clients, call me and be a little bit confused about. Okay, so the third point I wanted to cover was when you get sold comps from a realtor, it is super important to make sure that the information that you get shows you the net sold price. And what that means is sometimes the seller will pay a certain portion of the buyer's closing costs. For example, the house is $300,000, that's the sales price, but the seller and buyer agreed for the seller to pay, say, $5,000 in closing costs. So because the seller paid that, the net sold price to the seller, what they're actually making from the sale is $295,000, not $300,000. And so when you get comps from an agent, you really want to get that data because, you know, the goal is, of course, to lower our property tax bill. And so we want the comps to show the lowest possible price. And it's really not an accurate price to give a price with that closing costs wrapped into it because it inflates the price. And not all agents know that, so they might not give you that information. So when you get comps, there's actually two things to know when you get comps. Number one, it's only going to help you to get a comp if it's below the assessed value. If you're getting a bunch of comps below your market value, it's not going to help you at all. You've got to get below that assessed value to get any kind of a reduction. And then the second thing is make sure that they're giving you the information so that you can determine if any buyer's closing costs were paid. When I give those reports to my client, I always include that information, and I give them a heads up that if they see anything in that buyer closing cost field, to subtract that from the sales price to get the net sold price. So again, just to review those three important things. Number one, assessed value is the only thing that you need to focus on because you're only going to get a reduction in taxes if you get below that number. Number two, keep in mind that your e-file is your informal hearing. And then number three, make sure for any comps you get the true net sold price and not the inflated price with the closing costs. So I hope those three tips helped you guys out. Thanks so much for watching my videos. I really love hearing from you guys that you're having successful protests. I love all your comments and your questions. So please continue to comment and ask me questions. And if you like this video, give it a like. And one other thing, I just launched a brand new website. So go ahead and visit me there if you're looking to buy or sell a house. It's got lots of great information. And that web address is homesalesaustintexas.com. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.